This is the Silver Wolf Howl. I am Angela, and today we're chatting to Paul Hill from DML Forensics. So we're back again with Paul Hill. We found the last episode so fascinating that we had to tap your brain again a little bit more. So we're back again. This time we're talking about something quite interesting. We were chatting earlier and you said that it's still current, and the connection with you is that it's one of the first projects that you did here at DML, and that would be the Steinhoff story. So welcome, Paul, and thanks for joining us again today.
No, thank you very much for having me on to talk about this. It's a very interesting case. It's still ongoing. There's still a lot of moving pieces in this puzzle, and yes, as you mentioned before, this was my first assignment coming into DML Forensics, and in the beginning I thought, yes, this would be quite a simple assignment, but the more you peel back the layers, the more you find out about Steinhoff. It's a huge case. I don't think I realized in the beginning just the gravity of what this Steinhoff corruption matter had on South Africa in general, and even the international community.
Wow. Okay, I'm really interested to get going. So let's start with the first question. Let's start with Marcus Eustace's background. Can you tell me about his early life, education, that kind of thing?
Certainly. Well, Marcus Eustace was born on January 22nd, 1961 in Pretoria, South Africa. He came from relatively modest beginnings and attended Affy's, a school known for producing notable figures in South African society. Eustace's father introduced him to horse racing at a young age. This likely offered glimpses into a world of luxury and opulence for a young Eustace. For his tertiary education, Eustace enrolled at Stellenbosch University. He pursued a Bachelor of Accounting degree. During his time there, he resided in the Wilgenhof residence and was said to have showcased exceptional academic ability during his time there. So, surrounded by affluent peers and attending Stellenbosch University, during the height of Afrikaner nationalism, his time at Stellenbosch, paired with the frequent visits to the races, likely fueled his enormous aspirations and ambitions.
How did Eustace's early career unfold?
Well, after completing his education, Eustace began his career at the South African Revenue Service. This experience provided him with invaluable insights into tax systems and financial regulations. It was during his time at SARS that he audited one of Christo Wiese's companies, a connection that would prove significant later in his career. Following his period at SARS, Eustace's entrepreneurial spirit led him to establish Goma Goma Furniture. This venture capitalized on a unique business model where they would purchase affordable furniture from homeland areas and sell it in other markets quite profitably. The success of Goma Goma set the stage for Eustace's future in the furniture industry.
So then, how did Steinhoff International come into being?
Well, Eustace's path intersected with that of Bruno Steinhoff, another unconventional businessman in the furniture industry. Steinhoff followed a similar furniture business model to Eustace, selling furniture between East and West Berlin. Recognizing their shared vision and complementary skills, they decided to merge their companies, forming Steinhoff International. This merger marked the beginning of what would become a global retail giant. In early 2000, Eustace assumed the role of CEO at Steinhoff. One of his first significant decisions was to relocate the company's administrative headquarters to Stellenbosch. Now, this move was strategic not just from a business perspective, but also in terms of prestige, as Stellenbosch is quite known for its concentration of wealth and power in South Africa.
And do you think that that was also why it chose the place because of its early connection with Stellenbosch, studying there and getting a feel for the place and therefore getting a little more comfortable with it?
Perhaps. I believe Stellenbosch at that time, and still to this day, is quite well known for having a lot of the wealthy and powerful of South Africa. They all live around that area. Okay. So I think there was quite a lot of prestige and opulence and luxury in that area.
Then how did Steinhoff grow under Justus' leadership?
Well, under Justus' leadership, Steinhoff embarked on an aggressive expansion strategy, primarily through acquisitions. I mean, some of the notable companies that he acquired include Unitrans, Homestyle, ERM, Conforama in France, Pepcor, Poundland in the UK, and even the mattress firm in the USA. Now, what's interesting is the company reportedly paid 135.3 billion rand for these tangible and intangible assets. So, intangible including brand value and goodwill, whereas tangible is something you can touch. It's the computers, the buildings, for example. Now, however, it later surfaced that the fair value of the underlying tangible asset values for these acquisitions amounted to around 2 billion rand, while the fair value for the intangible assets was 21.4 billion rand. This meant that Steinhoff ultimately paid a staggering acquisition premium of 112 billion rand. Now, this rose questions regarding the valuation of Steinhoff's assets. I mean, despite these concerns, Steinhoff's growth trajectory was remarkable. Between 2012 and 2014, the company reportedly achieved annual growth rates between 30 to 36%. By 2016, Steinhoff had become a global heavyweight, employing around 130,000 individuals across all 5 continents and emerging as IKEA's primary competitor in Europe.
Wow, that is interesting. That is interesting. Could you elaborate a little more on Justus' relationships with other prominent business people? You mentioned earlier, particularly Christo Wiese.
Sure. Well, Justus' relationship with Christo Wiese is particularly noteworthy. As mentioned earlier, their paths first crossed when Justus, while working at SARS, audited one of Wiese's companies. The initial professional encounter laid the groundwork for a significant business relationship in the future. Now, years later, when Wiese decided to sell Lanzerac, a prestigious wine estate in Stellenbosch, Justus saw this as an opportunity. And it's quite funny, Wiese is quoted as saying, "I always tell people, one wine estate is one too many. To have 2 is close to a nightmare." So it was clear that Wiese wanted to sell Lanzerac. So Justus arranged to purchase it with Steinhoff shares. Now, this transaction proved to be highly beneficial for Wiese, because when Steinhoff's share price surged, it substantially increased the value of the deal. And as a result of this transaction, Wiese reportedly became the second largest non-institutional investor in Steinhoff. Recognizing the potential of this alliance, Justus offered Wiese a non-executive director role on Steinhoff's board. Now, in hindsight, although it's undeniable that Wiese's business wisdom could have greatly benefited Steinhoff, the decision to involve Wiese may appear to be part of a broader strategy by Justus to align Steinhoff with influential figures and attract top talent, ultimately raising the company's social standing instead.
So, when did the problem start emerging?
Well, the first major red flag appeared in December 2015. German authorities raided the Steinhoff offices, alleging accounting irregularities and fraud. This occurred just ahead of Steinhoff's listing on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. Justus managed to deflect the blame onto a former business partner, Andreas Seifert, allowing the DAX listing to proceed uninterrupted. However, it is worth noting that Jooste was absent from the DAX listing celebration, claiming back injuries. Now, this absence raised speculation about potential legal concerns he might have had regarding Germany. And despite these issues, subsequent investigations in 2015 by forensics firms cleared Jooste of wrongdoing, paving the way for Steinhoff's successful listing on the DAX.
Then how did the situation at Steinhoff deteriorate, leading to the eventual collapse?
The situation came to a head in late 2017. According to the Steinhoff documentary, Deloitte auditors received an anonymous package containing evidence related to this earlier German raid. Now, this new information led Deloitte to refuse to sign off on Steinhoff's financials without a thorough forensic investigation being conducted. Now, Jooste attempted to resolve this situation internally, and a final effort was made to Deloitte during a visit by Jooste to Germany on December 1st. However, it became quite clear that Deloitte's consent hinged on a comprehensive forensic investigation. And then on December 5th, 2017, in a shocking turn of events, Jooste abruptly resigned via email. This unexpected resignation triggered a massive crash in Steinhoff's share price. The company's stock plummeted by over 60% upon the announcement, sending shockwaves through the DAX and JSE.
60% is quite a jump. So what was the immediate fallout from the Steinhoff collapse?
Well, the consequences of Steinhoff's collapse were quite severe and far-reaching. Steinhoff's market value reportedly plummeted by over 200 billion rand almost overnight. The company was downgraded to junk status. The JSE reportedly lost 295 billion rand, a staggering amount, which was equivalent to about 8% of South Africa's GDP at the time. Steinhoff shares, which had peaked at around 96 rand per share in 2016, nosedived to around 4 rand each. This represented a loss of over 95% of their peak value. The collapse affected numerous investment funds and pension funds across South Africa. The Public Investment Corporation, which manages government employees' pensions, was among the major investors impacted. Techie Town, a company acquired by Steinhoff, initiated liquidation proceedings, adding to this financial turmoil of Steinhoff. Christa Wiese, who briefly assumed the role of CEO after Jooste's resignation before stepping down himself, indicating his intention to pursue legal action against Steinhoff for the significant losses he suffered. It was alleged that the Steinhoff crash erased more than half of Wiese's wealth at the time. And, of course, the collapse affected 340 investment funds in South Africa, many of them being pension funds. This highlighted the widespread impact on ordinary South African savings and retirement plans.
Sheesh, that is quite a lot. So, what did the PwC forensic investigation reveal about the fraud at Steinhoff?
Well, on March 15, 2019, PwC released only an overview of the findings of its forensic investigation, and these results were equally staggering. The investigation uncovered allegedly 106 billion rands worth of fictitious transactions, which spanned over a decade. These transactions revealed a deliberate effort by a select group of Steinhoff executives and other individuals to inflate profits and asset values. The report indicated that a small group of former Steinhoff executives and other individuals outside this group implemented various fictitious and irregular transactions, which substantially inflated the profit and asset values of Steinhoff. It is important to note that as of July 2024, only 11 pages of this 3,000-page forensic investigation have been publicly released. The full report does remain subject of legal dispute, and around the same time, evidence was found of Jooste's involvement in insider trading. He allegedly sent SMS messages to close acquaintances prior to the stock crash, advising them to sell off their Steinhoff shares.
What are the legal consequences that Jooste and Steinhoff faced?
Well, in October 2020, the Financial Sector Conduct Authority imposed a record 1.5 billion rand administrative penalty on Steinhoff. This was later reduced to 53 million, which Steinhoff paid without contesting. They also fined Jooste and three others a total of 241 million rand for insider trading related breaches. This relates to the SMSs he sent before he resigned. The penalty for Jooste specifically being 161 million rand. This was later reduced to 20 million in December 22. Jooste was found guilty by the JSE for breaching listing rules. He was fined 15 million rand and barred from being a director of a JSE-listed company for 20 years. In October 2022, the South African Reserve Bank obtained a court order to attach assets valued at about 1.4 billion rand. These assets included the prestigious Lanzerak wine estate and even the Jooste's family's Silver Oak Trust. The South African Revenue Bank also attached assets belonging to Jooste's mistress, Bodine Odendaal, totaling about 25 million rand. These assets include properties in the upmarket Val de Vie estate in Paarl. In June 2023, German authorities issued an arrest warrant for Jooste after he had failed to appear in a German court. And in March 2024, the FSCA imposed a staggering 475 million rand fine on Jooste for breaching financial market laws. This was one of the largest fines ever imposed on an individual in South Africa. Recently, we've seen Ben Lachransi, the former chief financial officer of Steinhoff. He was fined 2 million by the JSE in 2022 for violating listing rules. This was primarily related to a handwritten document given to him by Jooste, from which Lachransi was instructed to generate a 376 million rand, at the time, fictitious invoice. Now, these are quite staggering.
Yes.
The numbers here are quite high.
Quite high. Slightly. So what happened to Jooste in the end, and how did that affect the ongoing investigation?
Well, on March 21st, 2024, shortly after the FCA imposed the 475 million rand fine, Marcus Jooste unfortunately died by suicide in Hermanus, South Africa now. This tragic event occurred just as the National Prosecuting Authority was on the brink of pressing criminal charges against him. But despite Jooste's death, the investigation into Steinhoff does continue. The FSCA stated that Jooste's passing won't hinder the ongoing probe, given the involvement of other parties. Collaboration with the Hawks and the National Prosecuting Authority continues unchanged. It is worth noting that any penalties imposed on Jooste before his demise do remain enforceable against his estate. The FSCA has reserved the right to pursue recovery of these penalties.
Okay, all right. So what's the current status of the PwC forensic report, and why is it significant still?
Well, the PwC forensic report remains a crucial piece of the Steinhoff puzzle. As mentioned earlier, only 11 pages of the 3,000-page document have been publicly released. This limited disclosure has led to significant controversy and legal battle. I know that Amabungane, an investigative journalism organization, and the Financial Mail have filed for access to the full report under the Promotion of Access to Information Act. While the court initially ruled in their favor, Steinhoff has appealed this decision. Steinhoff argues that the report is protected by legal privilege, maintaining that it was only commissioned once it became clear that the company's collapse would result in legal action being brought against it. They also contend that the report was commissioned by their lawyers Werkmans and not by the company itself. Now, the significance of this report cannot be overstated. It potentially holds the key to understanding who exactly was involved in this fraud and who should have stopped it. Its release could prevent implicated individuals from shifting blame solely onto Jooste to evade repercussions themselves. Now, this case highlights important issues around corporate governance, transparency, and the public's right to information. It also raises questions about the balance between a company's right to legal privilege and the public interest in cases of large-scale corporate fraud.
And what's happening with the other Steinhoff executives?
Well, as of now, we've seen legal proceedings are ongoing against other former Steinhoff executives. Ben Lachranci, the former CFO of Steinhoff, and Stefan Grobler, a former Steinhoff executive, are facing charges in the Pretoria Specialized Commercial Crimes Court. Lachranci and Grobler were granted bail set at 150,000 rand. They're both due back in court in October 24. They face several serious charges, including 2 counts of racketeering, 2 counts of fraud, 1 count of contravening the Financial Markets Act, 1 count of contravening the Companies Act, and 1 count of contravening the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act, or PRECA. Now, these proceedings are a crucial step in holding Steinhoff's leadership accountable for this alleged fraud and financial misconduct.
And what are some of the theories of why Jooste did what he did at Steinhoff?
Now, while we can never know Jooste's true motivations with certainty due to his untimely death, several factors may have contributed to his actions. The first being his upbringing and environment. Jooste's early exposure to wealth and luxury, particularly through the horse racing events with his father, may have shaped his ambitions. His time at Stellenbosch University, known for its affluent and well-connected student body at the time, could have further influenced his desire for status and wealth. Social validation. Some of Jooste's actions, such as moving Steinhoff's headquarters to Stellenbosch, enlisting high-profile board members like Christo Wiese, could have been driven more by a want for social validation and prestige rather than by sound business strategy and practicality. Greed. Simple greed may have been a significant factor. Jooste's status as the world's second largest individual owner of racing horses at one point, second only to a sheik, suggests an insatiable appetite for wealth and the trappings of success. Disconnect from reality. There may have been psychological disconnect, as evidenced by Jooste's lack of public apology for the widespread repercussions of his actions. This suggests that he may not fully have grasped or accepted the consequences of his behavior. Pressure to maintain success. As Steinhoff grew rapidly, there may have been immense pressure to maintain the appearance of success and continued growth, leading to increasingly desperate measures to inflate profit and asset value. Cultural factors. The business culture in South Africa at the time during Jooste's rise may have played a role. There may have been a sense of entitlement or belief that rules could be bent for those in positions of power. And even addiction to risk. Jooste's involvement in horse racing is a high-stakes world, suggests that he may have had a propensity for risk-taking. This trait could have carried over into his business practices. Ultimately, Jooste's actions were likely rooted in a complex combination of these factors, reflecting a desire to emulate and surpass the affluent figures he admired, coupled with an insatiable pursuit of wealth, status, and power. The tragic outcome of this pursuit does serve, though, as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the importance of ethical leadership in the business world. Unfortunately, one can only speculate, and hopefully with the ensuing investigations and subsequent legal cases, answers will hopefully be revealed.
Really interesting points. So after all of your research and delving into all these details of this case, what is your takeaway from all of this?
Well, I think I'd always heard about Steinhoff, and I'd heard about the corporate fraud case, been painted over the news and all of that, but I don't think before doing this research I fully grasped just how big of an issue and the scale of this corporate fraud was. I mean, as we've seen here, we're dealing with high amounts of money in terms of fines, and the company was valued at such staggering prices, which, looking back now, we see that may have been slightly inflated to, project this image that Steinhoff is a retail giant. Now, I think also one quite interesting point is that I don't think many people in South Africa would have known what Steinhoff was trading in before this collapse. I don't think anyone had ever been into a Steinhoff shop or dealt with any of it, so it's all very strange. It was sort of a mystery, and I think now that we're starting to slowly peel back and just see what was actually going on behind closed doors, you can get a sense of just how big of an issue this was.
I mean, I was dumbstruck by the figures and all the fines and everything that you listed for us earlier. It sounds like you just made all of these numbers up because it's so unrealistic, to normal ears. But it's actually real.
It's crazy. And as mentioned before, these were some of the biggest fines ever recorded by the FSCA and all these other institutions. And I think they did want to, kind of put down a strong stance against this sort of corporate fraud. But the numbers we're dealing with here are staggering.
Indeed, they are, yes. I was thinking about your comment earlier about unchecked ambition, and I just thought, what do you think? Is it a thing that kind of feeds on itself? So, it's little in the beginning, but because it's unchecked, it kind of feeds itself and grows into this big monster that you don't realize that this is what you are actually, or this is what you've become. Like the frog in the pot of warm water that doesn't realize that he's getting boiled until he's actually boiling. Is that maybe a factor in this, that relating to this unchecked ambition comment that you made?
Yes, I think this might be one of those situations where one has to ask, exactly just how much is enough,
Yes,
and I think for persons like Jooste, and I'm sure there's many other, financial heavyweights in the country, I think once you get to a certain level, these just become, numbers on a screen for you. And I think, there's always that pressure to keep on growing, especially once you start earning this amount of money. I think you just want to increase, go forward and forward. And I don't think you have much time to take a step back and just realize, this is enough. I've done enough.
I think also when we push ourselves for more in life in general, the struggle to get there kind of slows down that ambition. So if you achieve that thing quickly, then you have to have another challenge. And I think his success over the years and his ability to achieve certain things may have also pushed him to get there faster than normal people would have.
I think they say that, once you climb a mountain, there's always another peak behind it. I think that could happen in these instances.
Yeah. So after you did all this research, do you think that you will still continue looking into this, or
yes,
is a satisfying need?
No, I think two things that I would be keeping an eye on is that PwC forensic report. As mentioned before, only 11 pages of that 3,000-page document have been released. Now, it begs the question, what else was happening there, and also who else was involved? I think, especially during the beginning, I think a lot of this was pinned on Jooste. And I'm not saying that wasn't rightly so, but I don't think this was a one-man show. I think for it to get this far and to deal with this amount of money, there has to be other complicit individuals.
Yeah.
And I think it would be important for South African society in general, considering just how many ordinary South Africans lost so much due to the actions of Steinhoff. It is important that, for lack of a cliche, justice is served.
Thanks so much, Paul, for joining us today and sharing your insight and all this information and research that you've done. And I think I need to take a minute just to absorb all of this information that you brought to us. But thanks so much for joining us again. It was lovely to chat to you again.
No, thank you very much for having me. It was great.